The carriages along Hawthorne Street rattled as though they sensed the storm about to enter their quiet world. But none of them were prepared for the sight of Lady Seraphina Vale, stepping out of the black coach that halted before the gates of Ravenshire Palace. For 5 years, the world believed she had faded into nothingness after the Duke discarded her like a worn glove. For 5 years, society whispered that heartbreak had broken her spirit, that she had vanished into shame, that no woman could rise from the ruins of a Duke's betrayal. They were wrong. She had returned not as the trembling girl she once was, but as a woman sharpened by pain, molded by determination, and empowered by the fire he had left behind in her. Her gown, a deep midnight blue embroidered with silver threads, shimmered as she stepped onto the cobblestone path. Her chin lifted with the quiet confidence of someone who had learned to live without apologies. She was no longer the naive debutante who had loved the Duke with a heart too open and too trusting. Now she was a force. Her mission was clear, simple, and razor-sharp: destroy the man who destroyed her. Rupert Ashford, Duke of Ravenshire, the man she once adored, the man who had kissed her like the world would end without her, only to abandon her at the height of the season with no explanation, no apology, not even a farewell. She remembered that night, the glittering chandelier casting golden light over the ballroom, the orchestra swelling with music, the whispers swelling louder. She remembered seeing Rupert approaching her, eyes cold, expression unreadable. Before she could speak, he had announced to the entire assembly that their courtship had been a momentary indiscretion, something he intended to correct immediately. Her world had shattered in the time it took for the crowd to erupt into cruel, delighted whispers. And he had walked away, without explanation, without regret, leaving her to drown before an audience that loved her humiliation more than the music playing. But today, as she entered Ravenshire once more, there was no fear in her, only purpose, only the fire he had given her. Inside the mansion, servants stopped and stared. Some recognized her instantly, some whispered, some gasped. But Seraphina remained composed as she removed her gloves one finger at a time, letting them fall onto the butler's trembling palm. "Inform the Duke that Lady Seraphina Vale has arrived," she said, her voice steady, commanding. The butler paled. "My lady, the Duke is hosting an international delegation, guests of great importance, I'm not sure." She stepped forward, her gaze piercing. "He will see me." Her tone left no space for refusal. The butler bowed and hurried away. While she waited, Seraphina glanced around the grand entrance hall. The portraits on the walls looked exactly as she remembered, ashen ancestors staring down with pride carved into their stone-like expressions. The floors still shone with the same polish. The scent of Ravenshire's roses still drifted faintly from the courtyard. It was like stepping into a memory she had sworn she would never relive. But revenge required revisiting old wounds. Moments later, hurried footsteps echoed down the corridor. The butler returned, looking even more distressed than before. "His Grace will see you now." Of course he would. Curiosity was an invitation no powerful man could resist. She followed the butler through the long hallway leading to the Duke's private meeting chamber. Every step felt like reclaiming something she had lost: her pride, her voice, her power. She paused before the tall double doors as the butler knocked. "Enter," came his voice, smooth, deep, and achingly familiar. The doors opened. Seraphina stepped inside. It was as if time folded in on itself. The Duke stood at the center of the room, speaking with 2 dignitaries who immediately stepped aside at his gesture. Rupert Ashford turned toward her, and for the first time in years their eyes met. He looked older, sharper around the edges, haunted in ways she hadn't expected. His once playful gaze now carried shadows she couldn't decipher. His black coat fit him like armor, and he held his posture like a man used to enduring battles no one else saw. For a moment, a brief, dangerous moment, the breath caught in her chest. Memories tried to rise. His laugh, his touch, the way he once said her name like it was a secret meant only for him. But Seraphina crushed the memory. She was here for war, not nostalgia. "Lady Seraphina," he said, his voice low, "I did not expect to see you again." She smiled coldly. "You didn't expect many things, Your Grace." The tension in the room tightened like a noose. Rupert dismissed the dignitaries with a quiet command. When they left, he turned fully to her. "What do you want?" he asked. Her answer cut through the air like a blade. "Everything you took from me, and more." Rupert's jaw clenched. "I see." "You should," she replied. "You started this, I've simply come to finish it." Instead of responding, Rupert stepped closer, not with arrogance but with something cautious, unreadable. "Serafina," he said softly, "you don't understand what happened back then." Her heart flinched, but she hardened it instantly. "Oh, I understand perfectly," she replied. "You broke me, now I'm here to return the favor." His eyes darkened, not with anger but with something else, pain, regret. She refused to care. Because today marked the first step of her revenge. But fate, cruel and unexpected, had written a different story. She had come back to destroy him. Yet the moment his eyes met hers, something old and dangerous sparked inside her, something she was not ready to face. Something she thought she had killed. And it terrified her more than anything. Silence weighed heavily in the room after Serafina's declaration, settling like dust on old wounds neither of them had dared to revisit. Rupert Ashford, once the man she believed destiny had placed in her path, stood before her, no longer the careless aristocrat who shattered her heart, but a man carved by some unseen pain. Yet she refused to acknowledge the flicker of vulnerability she saw in his gaze. She had come here to take back her power, not to drown in the shadows of their past. "Sit," Rupert said quietly, gesturing toward the chairs by the hearth. "I'm not here to relax," she replied coldly. "Then stand. Either way, you're going to listen." His voice wasn't commanding, it was weary, and that unsettled her more than fury ever could. Serafina crossed her arms, grounding herself. "Speak, then. Say whatever excuse you rehearsed." He let out a slow breath. "You think what I did was cruel, thoughtless, cowardly." "It was all of that and more," she snapped. He nodded once, accepting the blow. "Then let me tell you why." She wanted to interrupt him. She wanted to drown him in the same humiliation he gave her. But some stubborn part of her needed to hear what could possibly justify a betrayal that had rewritten her entire life. So she stayed silent, rigid as stone. Rupert walked toward the window, fingers trailing along the draped velvet curtains. The late afternoon sun cast him in a dull golden glow, highlighting the exhaustion etched into the lines of his face. "Serafina, the night I ended our courtship, I wasn't acting of my own will." She laughed bitterly. "Of course, a man of your rank never acts alone, always a puppet, always a coward hiding behind duty." His jaw clenched. "You think this was about duty? My father was dying." Her breath hitched, but she forced indifference. "Everyone loses someone. It doesn't excuse cruelty." "No," he agreed quietly, "but it explains the truth." She waited, heart pounding despite her resolve. He turned toward her, eyes shadowed. "Before he died, my father confessed something that destroyed everything I thought I knew about my family and you." Her brows furrowed. "About me." He nodded, stepping closer. "I learned that your father had made an arrangement with mine, a private deal." Serafina stiffened. She knew her father, cold, ambitious, calculating. What had he done? Rupert continued, voice low and steady, as though choosing each word with care. "Your father demanded a marriage alliance between you and me. In exchange, he offered information that could destroy half of Parliament. Blackmail, Serafina. He used you as leverage. My father wanted the alliance to secure power before he died." Her breath stumbled. "You're lying." "I wish I were." Her knees weakened. She had known her father was manipulative, but she never imagined he would barter her future like currency. Still, she refused to let Rupert soften the blow. "So you humiliated me to punish him, to punish me for something I didn't even know." He flinched. "No. I ended the courtship because your father threatened to expose the scandal unless I married you immediately. I thought he was forcing me to trap you in a union built on deceit." Something inside her cracked, not enough to break, but enough to hurt. "You could have told me," she whispered. "I couldn't." "Why?" He hesitated, and for a moment she saw fear in his eyes, not of her, but of himself. "Because your father made it clear, if I told you the truth before the deal was complete, he would ruin you. Not me. You. He had letters, Serafina. Private correspondences he planned to twist into scandal. You would have been destroyed socially before the season even ended." Her heartbeat pounded. Images flashed. Her father's cold demands, his impatience whenever she returned from balls without suitors, his sharp words about her being a financial burden. She had always known he valued power more than love, but she never knew he would weaponize her. Rupert's voice dropped to a whisper. "I broke things off publicly because it was the only way to sever the deal, to make your father lose interest, to protect you." She stared at him, breathless. You humiliated me to save me." He closed his eyes. "It was the only choice I had. If I rejected you quietly, the deal would stand. If I married you, I would be complicit in your father's scheme. So I did the one thing that would make your father withdraw his offer and leave you alone." Serafina's hands trembled despite her efforts. Every piece of her carefully crafted revenge wavered under the weight of his confession. This wasn't the story society had whispered. This wasn't the narrative she replayed in her mind for years. But she refused to let him rewrite the past so easily. "Then why didn't you come back? Why didn't you explain once the danger passed?" He looked at her then, really looked, with a vulnerability she had never seen from him. "Because by the time it was safe, you had already left London. And he hesitated, voice thickening. "I believed you deserved a life without the stain of my family, without the burden of my father's mistakes, without me." Her breath caught. "So you thought abandoning me was mercy?" "Yes," he whispered, "and the worst mistake of my life." The room fell silent. Serafina's mind spun. The walls she had built over the years, brick by brick, wound by wound, suddenly felt fragile. Her revenge, once burning bright, flickered with doubt. Because the man standing before her wasn't the monster she had imagined. He wasn't the cold-hearted duke she came to destroy. He was a man who had loved her enough to lose her. And that truth, that painful, beautiful truth, was more dangerous than any lie. For the first time since she stepped foot into Ravenshire, Serafina Vale felt something she had not allowed herself to feel in years: uncertainty. Not the kind that weakened the knees, but the kind that cracked the armor she had forged around her heart. Everything she had built since leaving London, every vow, every night she spent promising herself she would return stronger, colder, untouchable, seemed to tremble. His confession clawed at the rage she'd clung to for survival. It twisted her revenge into something messy, something human, something almost forgiving. Serafina stepped back, needing distance from him, from his words, from his pain, from the truth that threatened her resolve. "All of this," she whispered, her voice trembling in a way she hated, "all of this could have been avoided if you had trusted me, if you had spoken to me like a person, not a problem to solve." Rupert swallowed hard. "I know." "And you think that explanation fixes anything?" "No," he answered honestly, "but you deserve the truth." She clenched her jaw. Truth offered years too late is still a lie in disguise. His shoulders sagged slightly, and though she didn't want to see it, the weariness in his eyes felt genuine, like a man who had carried a burden alone for far too long. The crack in her anger widened, and she cursed at herself for feeling anything other than hatred. Because hatred had been easier. Revenge had been simple. But this was the complicated ache of a heart that remembered its past too well. Rupert stepped closer, cautiously, as though afraid she might disappear if he moved too quickly. "Serafina," he said, "I never stopped caring for you." Her breath hitched. "Don't." "I mean it." "I said don't," she snapped, but the sharp edge in her voice came more from fear than fury. He stopped immediately, hands curling into fists at his sides. "You came here to destroy me," he said quietly. "I understand that, but before you decide how to ruin me, allow me one question." She lifted her chin. "Ask. If you truly hated me, why did you return yourself and not send someone else to do your bidding? Why come here? Why look me in the eyes?" Serafina didn't answer. She couldn't, because the truth, sharp and unwelcome, pierced her defenses. She had come because she needed to see him fall, because she wanted him to feel the humiliation she had carried like a scar, because she wanted him to suffer. But she had also come because she never understood why he had left, because she needed answers she couldn't ignore, because part of her heart, no matter how deeply she buried it, still demanded closure, real closure, not whispers. And because, despite all her rage, she needed to know if the man she once loved had ever loved her back. She hated that he could still read her silence. He always could. "Serafina," he murmured, "I see the war inside you." Her hands shook, not visibly, but enough for her to clasp them behind her back. "You see nothing," she whispered. "I do," he insisted. "You're angry, you have every right to be, but the reason you're angry is not because you stopped loving me. It's because I broke something you believed in." She froze. He had sliced straight through her armor. "Stop assuming you know my heart," she said, her voice barely steady. "Then tell me I'm wrong," he said softly, stepping closer. Tell me you feel nothing for me anymore. Look me in the eyes and say it." The room held stillness like breath. Serafina opened her mouth, to lie, to wound, to regain control, but her voice betrayed her. "You don't get to ask that." Rupert inhaled sharply. "You can't say it, can you?" She turned away, every part of her trembling with emotions she didn't want. "This changes nothing," she whispered. "Your secret does not erase the years I spent rebuilding myself." "I don't want to erase them," he said. "I want to understand them, and I want you to understand something too." "What?" Rupert exhaled slowly. "When I ended things, I lost more than my future with you. I lost myself. Everything I did afterward, every choice, every step, it felt empty. I've lived like a ghost of who I once was." She closed her eyes, fighting back tears she refused to shed in front of him. "I thought," he continued softly, "that the only way to protect you was to sacrifice us. I thought hurting you once would save you from a lifetime of suffering. I was wrong." Serafina turned slowly. This time she met his gaze fully. There was no arrogance in his eyes, no entitlement, just raw, unpolished regret, the kind that couldn't be faked. "Why are you telling me all this?" she whispered. "Because you deserve the truth, and because," he swallowed, "because I can't lose you again, not like this." Her heart faltered. The same heart she swore she wouldn't let him touch again. The same heart she had spent years reinforcing with anger. And yet somehow, his words seeped into the cracks she had tried so hard to bury. Serafina stepped back, needing space, needing air. "I didn't come here for this," she murmured. "I didn't come here for confessions or apologies." "Then why did you come?" She hesitated. The truth slipped out before she could stop it. "I came for justice." Rupert nodded slowly. "Then grant me the chance to earn it." She shook her head, voice thickening. "Justice isn't given, it's taken." "Then take what you need from me," he said softly. "Punish me, curse me, hate me, but don't walk away again, not until I've made you understand the depth of what I feel." Her lips parted, but no words came. Because revenge had never prepared her for this. A man willing to be broken so she could heal. And for the first time, Serafina Vale felt her resolve bend. Not break, not forgive, but bend dangerously, painfully, toward the man she wanted to destroy. And the love she never truly buried. For hours after their confrontation, Serafina wandered through the sprawling halls of Ravenshire like a ghost moving through her own memories. Everywhere she turned, something reminded her of him, the sweeping staircase where he once kissed her gloved hand, the sunlit corridor where they exchanged glances during a ball, the balcony where he once whispered that she was the only woman capable of softening his world. She hated it. She hated the ache. She hated that his words still clung to her like a second heartbeat she could not silence. But most of all, she hated the truth she could no longer deny. Her revenge was no longer the weapon she thought it was. It was a shield protecting her from the love she still felt. She stopped beside a tall window overlooking the estate grounds. Evening had fallen, casting the sky in purple and gold. Her reflection in the glass looked foreign. The fierce avenger who arrived that morning was now a woman torn open, exposed, shaken. She lifted her hand to the windowpane, the cold glass burning against her skin. "How did I let him do this to me again?" she whispered. Behind her she heard soft footsteps, ones she recognized instantly. She didn't turn, didn't speak. She could feel him in the air, in the silence that stretched between them. Rupert stopped several paces away, as though afraid to cross a line she hadn't yet defined. "Serafina," he said quietly. She closed her eyes. His voice alone was enough to unravel her. "Not now," she murmured, her voice trembling. "I can't leave you like this." "That's the problem," she said, turning sharply. "You left me once without hesitation. Now you refuse to leave when I need space most." Pain flickered through his eyes. "Because I was wrong then, I'm trying to be right now." "Too late," she whispered, but even she didn't believe it. He stepped closer, slowly, cautiously, like a man approaching a wounded animal. "Serafina, look at me." She didn't want to. She knew that looking into his eyes would destroy the last of her resistance. But her body betrayed her heart. She lifted her chin, meeting his gaze. And in that moment, everything collapsed. Because he wasn't hiding anything. Not pride. Not power. Not arrogance. Only love, raw, unprotected, painfully sincere. "The night I chose to hurt you," he said softly, I chose the one path that meant losing you forever because I believed it was the only way to keep you from your father's cruelty. I believed protecting you meant stepping away. I was wrong. I was weak, and I've regretted it every day since. Serafina's throat tightened. You think regret erases the years I suffered? No, he said, but maybe it can build a bridge between who we were and who we could be now. Her voice cracked. Why now, Rupert? Why tell me all of this now? He exhaled shakily. Because you're here and because... He paused, swallowing, gathering courage. Because you still matter to me more than any consequence, any reputation, any fear. I can't lose you again. Not when I finally have the chance to tell you the truth. Serafina looked away, blinking back tears that burned her vision. I wanted to ruin you, she confessed shakily. I came here to take everything from you. I planned it for years. And now, he asked softly. Her lips trembled. Now I don't know what I want. You've made it impossible to hate you. Rupert stepped closer, slowly reaching out. Serafina, may I? His hand hovered near hers, not touching, waiting for her permission, waiting for her heart. She hesitated only a moment, then placed her hand in his. Their fingers intertwined, trembling, fitting with a familiarity that felt like home. The connection shattered the dam inside her. Tears spilled, unrestrained, unstoppable. Rupert cupped her face gently, brushing each tear with tenderness she had forgotten. Don't cry, he whispered, voice breaking. I can't bear it. But she did, years of pain, resentment, heartbreak, and longing pouring out like a storm finally released. Why did you never fight for me? She sobbed. Why didn't you try? I was a coward, he admitted. But I'm not anymore. Serafina, if you let me, I will spend the rest of my life fighting for you. Her breath trembled. I'm afraid, she whispered. Afraid of forgiving you, afraid of loving you again. He leaned his forehead against hers. I'm afraid too, but some loves, he murmured, are worth the fear. In that moment, the last piece of her resolve shattered. Her revenge melted away. Her anger softened, and the love she thought she'd buried rose to the surface, undefeated. She lifted her gaze, eyes wet and luminous. Rupert, I still love you. His breath caught a sound between relief and disbelief. Serafina, my God. She silenced him with her hands, cupping his face. But this time, she whispered, you don't get to leave. If we do this, we do it together. He nodded fiercely, desperately. Together always. Then, as though drawn by gravity, their lips met, a kiss years overdue, filled with longing, apology, forgiveness, and the promise of a future rebuilt from the ashes of their past. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't soft. It was the kiss of two souls who had broken and found their way back by force of fate alone. When they finally parted, breathless, Serafina rested her forehead against his. I didn't come here to fall again, she whispered. Rupert smiled, brushing his thumb against her cheek. You didn't fall, he murmured. You came home. And for the first time in years, Serafina Vale felt whole. Not because she forgave him, not because she returned, but because she allowed her heart the freedom to choose love again. A choice that changed everything. A choice that brought her back to the one man who had been waiting all along.